It's time to swarm the 402. Welcome to the Nebraska Hawkeyes. These guys are brave. They're Hawkeyes living in enemy territory. Listen, these guys are way past their prime, but they're still Hawkeyes. They're spreading the Hawkeye hype to all of Nebraska. The frost advisory is canceled. Corn Huskers, more like corn suckers. Are you ready for this podcast? Let's go Hawks!
All right. Welcome back to the Nebraska Hawks Nest, your Hawkeye oasis located in a nasty little Nebraska desert. If things look a little different right now on the podcast, it's because it's our Christmas special. And it's also because former Iowa Hawkeyes quarterback Matt Rodgers is classing up the place, stopping on in, catching us up on what he's got going on with his life. Matt, how you doing, man? It's awesome to see you.
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on, first of all. Second of all, go Hawks.
Yeah.
Go Hawks.
Yeah.
I'm living in Naples, Florida. It's, it was like 80 degrees out today. It's just one of those regular old days here in paradise. But actually I moved down here. I was living in the city, in New York City. And after September 11th, just couldn't wait to get out of there. And a year later we were down here. So my mom and dad had a place down here for years, so we ended up coming south. So I thought I'd get in before, I'd get in early because I'd end up down here anyway.
All right.
Nice. Very nice. Matt, it's an honor to have you on here. This is going to be a lot of fun because you've got, between you and then with your dad, you've got an incredible background. And, for those that don't know, Matt's father was Jimmy Rodgers, who was a coach with the Celtics a long time and then eventually with the Timberwolves and the Bulls. So, starting out with growing up, Matt, what was that like for you growing up around what I would consider the Boston Celtics team? The Bird, the Parrish, Ainge, and those guys.
Yeah.
Do you have any cool stories? What was that like growing up around that environment?
From probably sixth grade on, my brother and I have a brother that's a year and a half older than me, and we would go to the practices on Sundays and, just always around these guys. And it was funny when I was getting recruited pretty hard in high school. Danny Ainge wanted me to go to BYU. Bird wanted me to go to Indiana. It was like they would bring me in. I would go to the practice, and after practice, I'm throwing like out routes to Danny Ainge with a basketball. Crazy stuff like that. I lined up like a couple guys, and I'm like, all right, well, just run around, in high school. And like in sixth grade, Red Auerbach, he was around the practices all the time, and I was having problems at the time. I played 3 sports, and basketball obviously was one of them, but I couldn't get rotation on the basketball. I couldn't get it to spin. And my dad, I was like, Dad, can you help me with my spin and my ball? And he's like, why don't you just go ask Red? And I'm like,
whoa,
no way. No, I'm not asking Red. He's like, go ahead. He's not doing anything. He's not going to kill you. Just go over. And I was so intimidated. So I walked over and I was like, Mr. Auerbach, I'm having problems trying to get rotation on the basketball. And he's like, come on over here. And he takes his cigar. He was smoking a cigar during practice.
I was going to ask that exact question.
Yeah. He puts it in this little cup and then walks over and he takes me out to the foul line. And he starts with the evolution of basketball, the basketball was made, used to actually have like football, like they had like little strings on there. And a lot of the guys would line up like that, So anyway, by the end of it, I was rotating the basketball and ended up grabbing that cigar and my dad actually still has it. So it's pretty cool. It keeps it in a little glass case.
Wow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
incredible.
So I got a million questions right now. Just off the cuff here, I need to know, just from your experiences, what type of guy was Larry Bird? I grew up a huge Larry Bird fan. Like, that was my first basketball jersey ever, was a 33 Larry Bird jersey, and it was white, had stains all over it. I totally ruined it. But what kind of guy was Larry Legend? I even when I was like in 9th grade, I loved him so much. I had a little crappy peach fuzz mustache that I wanted to have because I thought he was so awesome. What kind of guy was he?
To people like in the family, in the Celtics family, he was incredible. He was like very personable, super nice. But, I think that, once he gets outside of that, he's just so used to getting just hammered like all these guys do and every level. And he was just a different person outside of the locker room, or if you will. And I could give you a list of guys like, that are that way, but just super awesome. He was an incredible guy. And he was actually down here in Naples living for a while. And my dad would hook up with him. But yeah, he was like everyone, my idol. I mean, all I wanted to do is try and shoot like him with his elbow out like this, out of the way. And he would, it was just, I
could never do it. I could never shoot like that, but it was so smooth when he did.
Neither could I. And Danny Ainge, by the way, I wore his shoes in high school. So my colors were Walpole Rebels in Massachusetts, and we were red, white, and blue. But I wore green sneakers, that was with Ainge on the back of them, green Nikes.
That is so cool.
It was just, we became very close. He's just a super, super cool guy. It was just basically from the football and all that stuff, but it was fun growing up that way.
That's incredible. And we could probably do an entire interview just on those stories, but
I know you're going to keep me calm down, Jerry, because I'm a diehard, like 80s, early 90s NBA fan. I'm not a big fan of it now, but back then, was
not either.
Yeah. That was my jam. I watched all the VHS tapes. I had them all. I never missed a game. So
Bernard King,
man,
and then the Boston Strangler with Philadelphia, and
my God.
Andrew Toney.
It was so much better back then.
It was great basketball.
He had characters like Daryl Dawkins. I mean, they're just the character was just outstanding. But I was a huge Dominique Wilkins guy back then. I loved watching Nick play. But
human highlight film.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really learn a lot of defensive skills, but man, that guy can play offense. One of the best game dunkers there is. So let's go ahead and take this further before we go down to this rabbit hole anymore. But so go ahead and take us into your high school recruitment, Matt. I mean, what was that like? Who do you have any good behind the scenes stories? Who else was in the running? Just basically take us behind the scenes on how you ended up at Iowa.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I basically visited Iowa just to appease my dad. Okay, yeah, I'll take a trip out there, but there's no way I'm going. And Miami, I had a trip down to Miami, which was QBU back then. With Jim Kelly and Testaverde and all those guys, Kozar. I just I got recruited by Michigan State, Pitt. Those were my visits, and Boston College. Went to Boston College on my recruiting visit, and the two guys, it was Darren Flutie, believe it or not, and Doug's brother, because he was in the same conference as my high school team. So I played against Darren, and in basketball and everything. I mean, by the way, Doug Flutie is, talk about human highlight film.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Sport. Any sport really, but
yeah.
Watching him back in high school when I was younger, he was a lot older than me, but he could have played at any level.
He never was given a chance. Everywhere he would go, they'd draft a quarterback the next year.
He went to Buffalo, and after I was there, and and ended up getting into the playoffs, and then they throw Rob Johnson, whoever the guy was, and
Yeah.
the playoffs, and they lose. But Doug got him there, and
Yeah.
But yeah, so I visited after when I went out to Iowa. I was just I was blown away by the people. That's what really got me with Iowa. Like walking down the street in Boston, two people all alone. You look the other way, but in Iowa, two people all alone. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. It was just, it's a different world, and just the nicest of everyone. But and my dad. So being a coach, all the recruiters came, the head coaches, and they all came to our house, and everyone basically just talked to my dad. Like they didn't even notice I was even there because all they were doing was trying to close my dad. And the only coach that didn't do that was Hayden Fry. Hayden Fry talked to me the entire time when he was in my house. And then, after Pitt told me that I was going to start right when I got in, which I knew was probably not going to happen. And I was just, I was really didn't have any idea where I wanted to go. And I was all over the place. And my dad said, well, what if something happened? What if you get injured? Where would you want to go? I said, oh, Iowa, that's easy. That's where I want to spend 4 or 5 years, without football. He's like, well, you might want to think about that, So, yeah, Bernie Wyatt was the recruiting coordinator for me in the East Coast back then, and Peter Marciano, who was he was in Brockton. I played against him in baseball and football, and so we ended up being roommates. So when I went to Iowa, I lived with a guy that was a junior. So I immediately was amongst all the older guys. So yeah, it was an amazing process and a lot of fun but yeah, Iowa. I mean, it's the best.
So Matt, if I could, sorry, Adam, but Matt, if I could just kind of follow up with a sub question on that. Your dad, for those in our audience who don't know, played for Iowa back in the day, and he had you had in Massachusetts. Had you had much exposure to the Iowa campus before your recruitment, or
not at all? Not at all. I mean, my dad would, because he went from Iowa to he went to North Dakota, where I was born. Went to Kentucky, Arkansas. Before that, and then went right into pros. So it was, when you're a coach in the pros, there's other than recruiting, which they don't really do, they just draft. There's no reason to go back to Iowa. He was too busy, especially during football season. And, I mean, my dad saw like 2 of my high school football games, just never there. But
Sure.
When I was at Iowa, he got fired by the Timberwolves in 1989, and then the '90 season went to every game. So, and we went to the Rose Bowl that year. So it was really cool. He was a presence, which was awesome.
Well, speaking of that Rose Bowl, Matt, you were a student at the University of Iowa during a really great time. We were having a lot of success. Walk us through what it was like. Let's get in that time machine. Pull us into Iowa City back in the late 80s, early 90s. What was it like to be a student at the University of Iowa? What was it like to be the starting quarterback on campus? What was life like?
It's really, really fun. Like all my buddies, we'd go to bars and, you're always out and everything, but some of the bars I'd have to go and the bartenders would let me sit behind the bar because there were so many people that wanted to talk to me. And, it was fine. I always talked to everybody, but it was, you can't even relax. You're just going out to have a beer. But, that's Iowa, the only show in town, right? There's no pro team, so the quarterback of the Hawkeyes is like, it's a pretty cool place to be. But yeah, time machine, boy. I lived with Brett Bielema.
Oh yeah.
Jim Hartlieb.
Okay.
Chris Green, Alan Cross, Doug Book, Paul Kuyava,
Wow.
and we'd have pull back the rug parties. Like, I mean, it was the wrestlers at the time. There was a couple guys that were on the team that were wrestling, Olsendorf and Mike Froney, and so it was just it was absolute blast. I mean, what's a better campus on the planet, really? I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing better. And then sprinkle in, oh, by the way, you guys are top 10 team in the nation, and then all the Iowa people think of you like you're a pro. It's like, it was a blast. Are you kidding me?
Oh, just please have a Brett Bielema story for us, please. Anything from when you guys lived together and grew up. We're Bielema fans. Like, we all like him. We think he's a great coach. Like, most Iowa guys root for Bielema. Like, I want to see him succeed. Yeah, like, I want to see him win at Illinois, except when he play Iowa. Other than that, like, I'm rooting for Bielema wherever he is. Give us a little nugget, something. Love a Bielema story.
I mean, I'm not gonna say anything that's gonna get him in any trouble.
No, we don't want that.
Because Brett, he's incredible. He's really a great person and a great friend. I mean, we would go home to his house, and whole group of guys would go home, and it's a farm. I mean, he lives in Prophetstown, Illinois. It was incredible. Brett, I could tell you a million stories about Brett, but it was probably the strangest experience I've ever had was looking at myself in the mirror with full Wisconsin gear on. Like getting ready to go out on the field. So all those guys I just mentioned and a couple others, I mean, it's probably 10, 12, 15 of us that all get together every year.
Yeah.
We go up to a cabin up in northern Wisconsin and hang out. And, we all were at this game and we're on the sidelines. So if you're on the sidelines, you have to wear Wisconsin gear. We're at the hotel and we're looking at ourselves in the mirror like, oh, kidding me? It's like sacrilege, I mean, it was, but because I'm a Brett Bielema fan, you do what you got to do,
That's a true friend.
I'm going to root for Illinois for every one of their games except Iowa. And same when he was at Wisconsin, it is what it is. And I'm used to that growing up with coaches, and you fall in and out of programs. I used to hate the Bulls, when my dad was with the Celtics, and then all of a sudden he's with the Bulls, and then all of a sudden I'm like hating the Celtics. It's just, you kind of go with your people,
Yeah.
That's where you go.
Yeah. So I got a question A and a question B then on the Brett Bielema note. A, were you around him or rooming with him when he got the infamous Tiger Hawk tattoo on his ankle? And B, were you rooming with him when he got caught on recording telling Jim Walden after the Iowa State game he appreciated kicking his ass for 4 years?
I was not like standing next to him when he said it, because it was on the field after the game.
Yeah.
That's when he did it. And, hey, I've enjoyed kicking your ass a little.
That's awesome.
That was a year after I was there. So he was a year younger than me.
Okay. And the tattoo, were you privy to any of that? Or
all guys got them. So it was out at the Rose Bowl, and they all went someplace, and I chickened out. I didn't want to get one. So, but all the guys got them, like the same kind of style right on their calves there, and No.
Did you ever come around and get one, or are you still tattoo-less?
I'm tattoo-less. I was thinking about getting a little rose, like right here, just a little rose, something simple. But the whole Tiger Hawk with the rose, like that's what they got, like the Tiger Hawk with holding a rose in its mouth.
Yeah, I have that. I have that tattoo.
It's cool, but
yeah,
I'm not an ink guy. That's all.
Yeah, that's on the.
I love it. I mean, my kids, my daughter has tattoos, and I have no problem with that.
I got a Tiger Hawk on the side of my leg for when last time we went to the Rose Bowl and got the rose through the beak, because I always thought that was so cool when we went to the Rose Bowl and Hayden would put the rose through the beak of the hawk. I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
Love it.
oh.
So, go ahead.
So Matt, starting off too, like Adam was saying, we'll get into 90 and 91, really, really successful seasons and a lot of successes there. But when you started out, though, it was a little bit rough there your first year or two. And I mean, when you look up on Wikipedia, your only pass as a freshman got intercepted on a fake field goal, and then
That's incorrect. That's incorrect.
Is that incorrect?
That's incorrect.
Really?
All right.
Yeah.
So let's correct Wikipedia then.
Well, it was the Indiana game, and Chuck Hartley was threw for like 600 yards. I mean, it was like a record. And I was holding for field goals. I fumbled the snap is what happened.
Okay.
And then I rolled out, and Marv Cook was wide open in the end zone. And I threw a perfect spiral. I mean, like tight spin right over his head, like 10 feet over his head, wide open for a touchdown. And Chuck was bringing us back. And yeah, so it was an incomplete pass. It wasn't picked off.
Okay, well, we, everything you read on the internet's true, but that you're putting a flaw in that one. So,
yeah.
And the other one though, you missed a bowl game for the first time in 9 years. Then in 89,
that was tough season.
What was the feeling like? And Hayden, what was behind the scenes like with when you're kind of having those kinds of struggles those years?
Tell you, when you're going through that, I mean, we knew we were good enough. But and it's the building process of getting to the Rose Bowl and getting to be 10-1, my senior year. But that foundation was, it was so hard, but really brought all the guys together. That's what it really does more than anything. And at the time, I was, I called my dad and I said, Dad, Coach Fry, sometimes he sends in a play that that it's like, dive right and he'll come in, dive left the next play, or, the same play. And I know that there's stuff open. And my dad's like, well, do you have the freedom to make the calls? I'm like, yeah, everyone, I don't want to run off the field and get killed if he's got the right play, and I change it. And my dad's like, well, why don't you just prepare for the game like you're calling every play? And that's what I started doing. And from that point on, that's with Bill Snyder as offensive coordinator, and he was an X's and O's. He break you down. Even before games, just the questions before the games, you had to know what was going on out there. It was very, very similar to the way it is now. With all the quarterbacks back then, a lot of the guys, they would just wing it. It was crazy. There was some guys who wouldn't watch film. It was crazy. But that's when I really kind of put my head down. And figured it out. And I think my senior year, I called a lot of the plays. It was just this, coming in, check with me. That was the call. And Coach Fry just be like, get up the line, know exactly what defense they're in. I've been watching it all for 2 weeks. I'd get some film time in the week before if it was a big game, and I knew exactly what they were doing. And I have to come back to this, but Nebraska, by the way. So Bo Pelini is he's a very good friend of mine, very close friend.
Okay.
Because Mark Stoops and Bobby and Mike and those guys were all coaching. Bobby was a GA when I first got there. Mike was Bobby was a defensive back. So Mike was a GA, and Mark was Peter Marciano's best friend, my roommate. So hung out with the Stoops brothers. But every time we drive back from Peter Marciano and I would drive back from Iowa to Boston, our midway point was Youngstown. We'd stop and we'd stay at the Stoops family house, and ended up getting to know all the Pelini brothers, and now Bo's, he's the free safety coming out there against me. It was, and he's, Scholastic All-American, and, just a smart guy. And we hit it off great, but the game against Ohio State, So my sophomore year, Coach Fry pulled me out because I had a middle route and a post, and I was just reading the free safety, and Bo was just baiting me to throw them. He knew, because he was watching film just like I was. He knew I wanted the in route, so he had to kind of play the post, and then as soon as I threw it, he broke on the ball, and I completed the pass. It was a 20-yard pass, and he almost broke it up. And Coach Fry pulled me from the game because he thought the post was open, so like it looked like the post was open because right when I threw it, he left and he tried to time and break it up. So the post looked wide open, and I'm like, Coach, and I turned my head, and Coach Fry grabbed my face mask and said, "You look at me when I'm talking to you." And this was like on ABC national television. All my friends were like, oh my God, like they were giving me crap for weeks about it. But Bo, and then so they took me out and put Tom Polsky in, who I had beat out the first game. Tom had a rough first half against Tulsa, and I came in and I stayed in, from that point on. So I was like, oh no, now Tom's in. And Tom, by the way, God rest his soul, just passed away a month ago. So rest in peace, Tom Polsky, to his whole family and everyone. I mean,
yeah,
he was a wonderful person, great teammate. But anyway, that story, Bo and I are still. He still gives me, the crap about that, going on, and he got me yanked from the game basically. And then so he puts Polsky in. Polsky does the same exact thing. Throws it right, and he completes the pass on a 20-yard. He puts me back in. So thank God I got that hit.
We need to get Bo Pelini on the podcast. I would love that.
So, and I believe if I remember correctly,
he's got a place down in Naples and plays at the same club I play at. Like, we're very close.
Really?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I believe he was one of the safeties on the Hartlieb to Marv Cook in that final game at Ohio State. I think he was one of the safeties that tried to take out Cook before he got to the end zone on that final play, if I remember right. Maybe some of our viewers can correct me.
I don't know. We'll have to look at the film on
that. So anyway, so Matt, you get into 1990 then. I mean, was there a feeling coming in after 89 and that, was there a feeling coming into the season that this was going to be different, or what was the outlook of the team as you behind the scenes as you came into the 90 season?
It was a big chip on the whole team had a chip on their shoulder because we were picked to come last, picked by a lot of the press that we were coming last in the Big Ten. So yeah, I mean, we knew we were good. We knew we were a lot better than we showed on, on the stats, and so yeah, coming into that season. And, we played Miami down in Miami at the Orange Bowl, and we showed up against them, and they were like the number one defense. And, they might've been, they were up there. It was Erickson, it was quarterback, and Erickson, the coach. And they were solid, and their defense was tops in the nation. And we ended up being right in the game. We had a drop punt, and I threw a pick, and we lost the game, but we hung in there, and that kind of gave us confidence. Like, wow, I guess we are good enough to hang in there. And sure enough, we beat Michigan State, Illinois, all on the road that year.
Jerry, do you remember that game specifically? You had to buy it on pay-per-view. I remember.
Yep, I do. Yeah, I went over and mooched. I went over to my cousin's house and mooched off him because I didn't want to spring for it myself. But
my mom got pissed off at my dad. She's like, "You don't watch enough football as it is. You got to pay for it and order a pay-per-view." And he's like, "That's the only way you can watch it. Like Iowa doesn't play this team very much." And I'm like,
Miami?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You had to buy it on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's like 90 degrees at night. I mean, it was just, I cramped. I got a thigh bruise in that game, and the treatment for the thigh bruise is to basically, after you're done, is the chicken wing. So they basically tape your ankle to your butt. Basically, they tape it right around your whole area there, so it keeps it contracted. And And then we were on the plane. I was chicken wing, they call it. So I'm all taped up with my leg, like I had to be on crutches. And then I got a cramp in the back of my leg, in my hamstring, the other side, and had to cut it off and stretch my leg and then retape it again. I got another cramp. This is, the 3-hour flight back to Iowa City.
How crazy is that on that Miami game also to think about? I think there might have been a freshman on the other sideline named Dwayne Johnson. I think
right. Yeah, the Rock.
Exactly. Yeah, the Rock.
He was on that team.
Yeah, and then were you? Was it a little bit of a strange feeling? Did you ever look across the field and think, where they recruited you, as you said earlier? Did you ever look across the field and think that I could have been on that sideline and not this one? Or?
Yeah, no. I like once I was at Iowa, I was all in. I mean,
yeah.
And even the Miami, like I was scheduled to go visit them, but on the same weekend, the guy, I was like, he called me and he's like, you ready to come down? I was like, yeah, is there anything that, I need, or, he's like, yeah, we go fishing and, but there's 30 other quarterbacks down here on the same weekend, 30 quarterbacks the same weekend I was going. So I didn't even go. I just said, I'm not going.
No. Matt, we need to ask you. And so for those of you that are listening on the podcast that can't see it, Matt's got a pretty cool collection of guitars on the wall behind him. And so you referenced a little bit about being a musician. Tell us about, what instruments you play. Are you in a band? How often do you play? Tell us about your musical life a little bit.
It's just a hobby. I like the collecting the guitars is kind of the cool thing for me. But no, I was in a little group in a little band in high school and messed around with some guys and I've just kept with the guitar the whole time and then along the way I've learned piano, and with YouTube you can pretty much learn anything nowadays. I mean, I learned how to change the brakes on my car and Range Rover wanted to charge $1,700 for me to get my brakes changed. I'm like, what? I YouTube did. It was like $80 total. I mean, I was like,
jeez.
Took me an hour on the first tire, but the other 3 were like 15 minutes, So, But yeah, I played piano. I mean, all my kids. My son actually went to Iowa and played in band.
Oh, cool!
He's a trumpet player in band, so he had the whole Iowa experience, just like my father and I did. So,
so real quick, who do you think is the greatest guitarist that ever lived? And who's your idol when you think about a guitarist, Matt?
Clapton.
Yeah, Clapton.
Yeah, Eddie Van Halen was.
I was going to say Eddie.
I saw Van Halen in college or in high school like 3 or 4 times. But yeah, Eric Clapton, just the blues. I'm a big blues fan. I love it. But yeah, I'm a hack. I mean, for the first time, so I just like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I went up to Boston for kind of a reunion get together with my buddies from high school. And we went up to this house up in New Hampshire. And one of the guys that I played in the band with, he's like, "Hey, you gonna bring your guitar?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah, I'll bring one." And for the first time, I played in front of someone. It was just my friends. It was a bunch of guys, and some, the girls we used to hang out with as well. They were all friends, and I was like singing and playing, and it was like I felt like I was a real, it was cool. But no, I'm not good.
If I would have known, I would have said, "Hey, can you play something for us on the podcast?" But I did not prepare you.
I shouldn't have told you.
Matt's got all these cool guitars in the background, and then you say, "Can you play something for us?" And he breaks out like a Mary Has a Little Lamb or something.
Hey, I'll take it.
Everyone knows Smoke on the Water.
Yeah, there you go.
All
so
right.
you with your connections, let's say, you've had to have had a really cool. Who's one of the coolest guitarists you've ever met?
The Dirty Heads are these guys that I met through a friend down here in Florida that owns a hotel, and they would come there all the time. And he's like, "Hey, come over. These guys play golf." So I went over and played around with them, and ended up becoming really good friends with the guys. So I've gone all over, following them and just backstage and everything. And it's the coolest thing ever. And just being in that, I think there's a lot of athletes that would love to be musicians, and musicians want to be athletes. It's very synonymous.
All right, Matt. It's 1989. I'm rolling into the dorm room here. You got a pack of your cassette tapes. What are your top 5 cassette tapes in like 1989 in college, like in your prime? What are you listening to?
Top 5, yeah, I mean, right up there. U2. I was a huge U2 fan.
Okay.
I'm a big U2 fan. Bruce Springsteen.
The Bruise.
Yeah, love the Bruce. And I was into. Yeah, I mean, like Journey. Back then. I mean, now
I love Journey.
After grunge, I mean, I'm just an alternative guy now. I mean, I love that stuff.
Sure.
But back then, yeah, I mean, REM. I was a big REM fan.
Okay.
Yeah. Pull back the drug parties. That's where we get all the connections. Hawkeyes was the master. He had a whole wall in his room that had quotes from Coach Fry, from everyone. But any quote that he thought was great, he'd throw it up.
Really? Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So, kind of finishing off on the 1990 team then, Matt, you guys finish, let's see here. It was 6-2 in conference, 8-4 overall, but you get the bid to the Rose Bowl. It was a 4-way tie. What's the feeling like? What was the Rose Bowl preparation like? And how much of an emphasis did Coach Fry put on that? Because you were rematching with Washington, who had bested him back in 81 or 82 when they went there. So, kind of lead us into what that whole Rose Bowl experience was like.
It was pretty cool. We actually had to go out there early because the bubble, we had a snowstorm and our bubble fell down. So we had to go out. So we had 2 weeks out there rather than a regular week. And it was amazing. I can't remember his name, but the guy from Coach, the show Coach,
Craig Nelson.
Yeah, Hayden Fox.
Yeah.
He came to practice and gave us a fake speech. Yeah, it was.
That's cool.
And Coach Fry, and we went to the Playboy Mansion, which was pretty cool. Met Hugh Hefner.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah.
Was he wearing the smoking jacket when you met him?
Oh yeah. He was so good. He had the whole thing going. He had the ascot. He was
really
a good character.
That is so cool. See, a lot of people don't know that the show Coach was like modeled after the University of Iowa. Like when they show scenes of the campus, it's Iowa. Like Hayden Fry, Hayden Fox. Like it was a lot of parallels.
Right. Yeah, he came out to talk. That was really cool. But that season. It was strange, after we lost to Minnesota my last year, the last game, one of the interviewers was like, do you feel like you backed your way into the Rose Bowl? And I was like, backed our way? What are you talking about? We beat Michigan State, Illinois, all top 10 teams on the road. Like, no, we didn't back in. We got there. I mean, we're there. We're going.
Yeah.
When I walked out of the interview, I was so mad at the question.
Yeah.
Well, they put so much emphasis on they did it this year too, that last game of the season. And the fact of the matter is whether that game was played that final week or was the third week of the season, that whole backed into it is just on the perception of that final weekend, and so it's like, it's really misleading. It really is. It is.
I mean, it's amazing. Just like my senior year to win 10 games. I mean, like this year, they won 10 games. They might've been ugly and they 10 games. That's not an easy thing to do in college football. So, hats off to the Hawks. I mean, our special teams. I mean, the offensive line. I mean, it's just they just had a tough time on offense, and they still got the wins. So
yeah, that's what matters in the end. I mean, it was ugly, but we got it done.
So to that point, that's what's always crazy to me is, at 8-4, you get into the Rose Bowl, then your 90 season, and then 91, as you said, 10-1-1, and that 91 team. And I suppose it's because I'm not trying to be a negative, but you didn't win the conference championship. Michigan went undefeated in conference that year, but 10-1-1, it's like, I think that team kind of gets forgotten as a fan, to be honest with you. And maybe it's just because it doesn't have the aesthetic a feel of like, a Big Ten champion or whatever it may be. But I mean, that's one of the best records in program history right there.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like that season?
It was an amazing experience. That was a bunch of guys that had been through those previous 2 years. Like that's that's what it yields. And you get a bunch of confident guys that are very, very close. I mean, every one of these guys I still like keep in touch with. I mean, it's amazing how close that group was. And our offensive line and our running game was ridiculous. I mean, it was, after Nick Bell and Tony Stewart left, Mike Saunders came back in from playing receiver and went back to running back. And our O-line was incredible. I mean, Mike Devlin, Scott Davis, Mike Ferroni, Teddy Velliser, all these guys they're just, really solid offensive line. And we worked, it was a run offense. I mean, that's, run to play action. I mean, I did, an option every once in a while, but it was just, to come off guard. I mean, it was a run the ball, hopefully 50% of the time or more. And that's the philosophy, and it worked.
Matt, really I want to get your take on, because back in your playing days, to get a national champion, I mean, it just was voted on. It was kind of like I always say, I think college football is the greatest sport of all time, but it was a crapshoot. Like, there was never clearly like who was really the national champion. It'd be split some years, and it was chaotic. And now with the college football playoff being at 4 teams, first time a group of 5 teams ever been in it. What are your thoughts on the current setup and the current state? Do you feel like it should expand? Do you feel like it's really good where it is? And how do you feel like the Hawks would have done in a 4-team college playoff back when you played?
Yeah, well, I definitely think I like the playoffs, and I think they should add more. I mean, it's just hard to do with football because you need a week. It's so what they're doing now, it works. I mean, it's still voted on to get in the top teams. But back when I was playing, I mean, we were 10-1 and we went to the Holiday Bowl. Because it was a bowl alliance. I mean, we were locked in to go to the Holiday Bowl. Nothing against the Holiday Bowl, but it would have been nice to go to the Orange Bowl or the Cotton Bowl or one of the January 1 games.
Yeah.
So it was tough. That the way it worked back then, but I like the way they're doing it now, and I think they, what would be perfect would be to have enough time to actually have a full, if you go to 5-6 bowl games, you win the national championship. If you go, like, it's a real tournament. It's very hard to do, but
there was a model is like pitched. It's starting to gain a little steam. They're worried about what's going to happen with the bowl games, and so this new setup has been pitched recently, where they were like, "Why don't we do like an early season kickoff, and all the teams play their bowl game the first game of the year, and it goes off of your record from the previous season, and you come in, you play your bowl game. It's like your season kickoff." And then after that, you play your schedule, and then you have the playoff at the end. I thought that's interesting. And I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know. I mean, every team's different from year to year. I mean, you graduate a bunch of, so it's not like pros where you got most of the same guys coming back. I mean,
it was just a way to keep the bowl games, to keep them around, but be able to focus more on a playoff. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I'm like, I'd like to hear some more conversation about that.
So, Matt, on that 91 Holiday Bowl that you mentioned, then you went in and you played a Ty Detmer BYU team, and you end up with a 13-13 tie. That's a very unique outcome, I guess, in a bowl game situation. As a player, does that leave you with any kind of a different feeling? You finish the bowl game with the tie and
horrible, like kissing your sister, right? And that's it. It was like, kidding me? Yeah, I mean that. I was so jacked up for that game. I basically threw my arm out like in warm-ups. I was throwing it as hard as I could, as far as I could, and it was pretty cool. Wayne Gretzky was he flipped the coin toss.
Really?
That was pretty cool to meet the greatest ever on the field right before. And then being with Ty Detmer, I mean, we were together, the whole week, doing interviews and stuff, and got to know him. And he's a Texas boy. I mean, he's Mormon, but down deep, he's a Southern boy. And he ended up, we ended up going and playing in the Japan Bowl as well together in the college all-star game. So, we hung out a lot. He was a great guy. But yeah, his last pass, I think, was picked off by Brian Wise.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Adam, I don't know if you caught this or not. So, grew up with Larry Bird and the Celtics, I'm assuming you probably met all the Bulls when your dad coached with them in the 90s. And he got to meet Wayne Gretzky at the coin flip at the Holiday. I mean, check this guy's Matt's like a walking, athletic Hall of Fame, man.
But it was real. I mean, it really happened. It's good color, right? I mean, you guys like to hear it. Yeah, my life.
The humble brags just flow with you, don't they, Matt?
Yeah, no, it was. It's interesting. And I play with golf with guys, and just bring up some stories, and next thing you know, they're asking all kinds of questions, and it's fun. I mean, they want to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, we only tease because we're jealous, Matt. So
yeah.
Well, I'm jealous of you guys.
Yeah. Said nobody ever.
That's the way to do it.
So, so one real quick on the 91, and then let's get into your post-playing career, Matt. But did you see Leroy Smith coming out like he did in 91 at defensive end? I mean, he just tore the league up. I mean, defensive player of the year, kind of an out of nowhere type thing. And I don't want to say nowhere, but I mean, I think it was kind of a surprise. Did you see that behind the scenes coming into that season, that he was just going to go crazy that year?
Well, everyone knew he was great. I mean, he was recruited as a running back. I mean, he came in as, in the running backs room. I mean, it was not, so that tells you a lot about the kind of feet he has.
Mm-hmm.
He has quick feet, and he's a fast runner. And then you put some weight on, and next thing you know, all right, let's move him to defense. And it happens a lot, guys change positions, and yeah, I mean, 19 sacks, I think it was. I mean, unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's All-American, He was a great guy too.
Matt, I wanted to get into and ask you a little bit about your transition and your experience with the Buffalo Bills. What was that whole experience like, getting drafted by Buffalo, and how difficult of a transition was that, moving from the college game to the pro game?
Yeah. So first of all, I was the worst pick of the NFL draft in 1992. So the last pick is Mr. Irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
He gets a car, and he goes to Disney World, and he's in the parade and everything. I think it was Matt Elliott, like the center from Michigan or something. And I was the second to last pick. The worst pick in the NFL draft. So, but yeah, I mean, I was actually surprised when Marv Levy called me, because after the first day, it's like, okay, you want to go free agent, you want to pick the best place to be, and there were teams that were calling me and telling me, that they wanted me. They told me at the combine, and none of them, I mean, even didn't get a sniff, and Marv called me, and I'm like, Buffalo, oh my goodness, so I went and looked at Jim Kelly, Frank Reich, coach of Indianapolis now, and Gail Gilbert, who was also an 8-year veteran at the time. So they had 9-year veteran and two 8-year veterans, and they drafted me. Like, why? And then I get there and make the team, and they kept 4 quarterbacks. Who keeps 4 quarterbacks? And it was bizarre. Like I thought that the preseason, I thought I was done. I mean, I went out there. They put me in like the second quarter of one of the first preseason games, so I was surprised to even get in early. But I was with all the starters: Andre Reed, James Lofton, Kent Hull, center. I mean, Mark, Thurman Thomas, all the guys. And we went right down the field and scored. And then I never got into another game. So I thought I was going to get cut. Everyone's saying, oh yeah, I'm going to get cut up. Well, I haven't even been in, and I made the team basically on taking the team down and scoring, with the ones. So and it was a blast. I mean, it was a veteran team. It was a lot of fun to be there. I mean, Jim Kelly is calling me to go out. I'm trying to make the team. I'm like, Jim, I was like one of the other. I was like a single guy, a new single guy. All the guys are married, and Jim Kelly's not, not. So, hey, the limo is going to be out in front of your apartment in 10 minutes. I'm like, no, I'm not going out.
And word about Jim Kelly is he could put down a few brewskis. Like, he can have fun.
He's a great guy.
No, that's what I've heard. He's super social. Like, he likes to go out and have a good time. Very social guy. So that's was he that type of guy?
He's one of us. Like if he'd be sitting right here, unless he's one of those guys where if you get outside the locker room, there's a different person. It's because he gets so hounded. Buffalo. I would go out with him, and it was it wasn't the same guy that I was hanging out with. You'd have to act different. And I guess I don't know. I've never felt like that except for Iowa.
So was it did it put a little bit of a different spin on it for you when you watched him get to those 4 straight then in the 90s, Matt, after having that experience with him? And what was it a little bit different watching him get to the big stage each time?
Yeah, it's you're personally involved with somebody. You get to know people, and you love them. You want them to win, and yeah, it was amazing. I've got a game ball up here. I still have my Buffalo helmet, by the way.
Cool.
Want me to put it on?
Yeah.
I got my Hawk helmet too.
Let's do it. Put them on.
Let's do the Buffalo one. Let's see it.
Hold on a second.
All right.
I kind of want to see them both. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
There we go.
Nice.
There we go.
Still fist. Let's go.
Man, throw on the pads. Get him out there, man.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
Real tight.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah, so's my basketball movie from high school, Matt, so don't worry about it. Well.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. There we go.
Cool.
Very nice.
The old Rydell.
Nice.
Yeah, still got it. Yeah,
very cool. That is awesome.
That's awesome, Matt. Appreciate that, man. So, I almost feel like we're glossing over things. But we haven't even mentioned that you were Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year with Nick Bell in 90. I mean, it's like –
yeah, O-line. That's all O-line right there. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, yeah, I had to throw the balls, but it was like guys were wide open on play action. I mean, I can't remember how many times I completed the same route. It was crazy. I mean, we ran the ball so well that it was and I had all day to throw, so it was.
Yeah.
It was
so the other thing about it is I look at this, and you had 2 fullbacks that I'm going to name off here and for different reasons. But number one, you had Lou Montgomery, who, in my own personal opinion, I think he's an unheralded. I think to me, if you had a Mount Rushmore of fullbacks at Iowa, Lou Montgomery deserves to be on that. He was a stud. He went after guys. I mean, I was always a Lou Montgomery fan. But then secondly, you had a fullback named Matt Whitaker, who went on to.
He was tight end.
Oh, he was tight end. Okay, excuse me.
Hawkeyes was the other fullback.
Okay, but anyway, so Matt Whitaker, did you see any clue of this political career moving forward?
But he was always a really good student, and he had a serious girlfriend all through college. So, I mean, he was focused. If he knew what he was a poli-sci major, he knew what he wanted to do. That's awesome, and great guy. He did. I don't even know if I should even go into this, but I'm going to anyway.
Do it.
My senior year, my last game. So I hurt my knee against Ohio State, and it was out a few games. And my last game was against Minnesota, and it was snow. It was like a foot of snow, and they had to, I don't know if you guys remember that game, but Dane and Hughes did the snow angel.
Yeah.
But during that game, like I was so dialed in, and I've talked to kids about it. I've talked to the Iowa. Kirk's had me come in. But you get so focused on what you're doing that everything slows down, and they call it the zone or whatever it is, but it actually happened during that game. And when I threw this ball to Matt Whitaker, it was like I could see the stripes on the ball spinning, and I put it exactly where I wanted to put it, and it like bounced off of him. I don't know if the defensive guy might have got it. I don't know, but it was like right where I wanted to put it. And then I got knocked on the ground, and my face went right in the snow, and I got all snowy on my face. So we came back to the huddle, and I just ripped him. I'm just like, catch the ball, in a nice. That's the nice way to say it. But
Yeah.
That was my senior year. His junior year, he was a year younger than me. So that's my Matt Whitaker, one of my Matt Whitaker stories for you.
I guess
go ahead, Matt.
I get so pulled into these stories. I'm just like listening, and then it's like over. I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing an interview here. I need to probably ask another question. Like, there's such good stories. I'm so zoned in on it.
Well, it was like coming into this with our research team. It was like, what's the Matt Rodgers bingo game? Because I mean, he beat us to the punch on Bo Pelini, on the Stoops, on all these things. So Matt Whitaker was all we really had left on that last one, Matt.
Yeah.
You've had an incredible life, man. You've met some people and done some wonderful things. Yeah,
very fortunate, But it was weird. Even like in high school, growing up in Boston, it was just normal hanging out with Larry Bird. When I moved, my dad was with the Bulls. I was living in Chicago at the time. And I'm like, working out with Pippen, and like it was just like that was normal to me. So when people talk about it and they tell you about it, it's like, oh yeah, I guess it's pretty cool. But for me, it was just like that's my life. Like that's what you do. You get up, and my dad would go to the games, and we would go with him. He was a workaholic. We'd get there 4 hours before sometimes the floor was even put in because they had a hockey game that day, or get there so early. My brother and I would just rebound for the guys, and this was at Cleveland and Boston, and it was just like that's the life you live, and there's all the coaches and all their kids that that's the way it is. They're in the program, you're part of the family.
Matt's hanging out with like Larry Bird, Danny Ainge, and Scottie Pippen, and I'm spending my spare time hanging out with Jerry.
hey, my 2 points high school career, scoring total points, that should stand for something, Adam.
It does. I'm proud of you, man. It stands for something.
All right, Matt. So we got to ask. We're not going to say who you think would win. Bird in his prime, Jordan in his prime, 1-on-1. Who's your money on? If you just the fact that him, we're not saying this would be the outcome, but if you said, okay, I got to put my money on one of these guys, who's your money on from your personal experience?
I mean, personal experience watching these guys. I mean, it would be tied up. I mean, you have to win by 2. It'd probably last for weeks. That's how good they both are. I mean, and they're so competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, just with one-on-one basketball, you got to go with Jordan.
Okay.
He's go right by. I mean, Bird would follow him and foul him and use all of his tactics of getting under his skin and everything. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's the way Jordan was too. He's so good. Those guys, so good.
Larry Bird's still going to have the best trash talk stories. I can watch hour after hour of guys telling Larry Bird trash talk stories. I mean, the guy, and he backed every one of them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he did. But Matt
would call his own teams out. His own teammates. Playing with a bunch of women or whatever you would say. It's like.
All right, Matt, we better let you get back to your family. It's the holidays. It's Christmas. Everyone's excited, so we're not going to take up any more of your time, but thank you so much. We appreciate it, man. It was so much fun getting to meet you and talk to you, and thank you for all the awesome memories you provided for us over the years as a Hawkeye. We look back on those and we do cherish them. They're amazing. So, thanks again, and thanks for helping us relive those memories.
I really appreciate it, and I'm just so proud to be a Hawkeye, and I'm proud of everyone that's a Hawk, and so we're all on the same team.
Heck yeah,
we all share it. So
are you going to the bowl game, Matt?
I'm not. I'm going to watch. I'm watching on TV.
Okay, I say it's pretty close. How far away is it from you?
It's close. It's close. Like 3 hours drive.
Matt,
I know.
come on. I'm going to be there. I'm coming from Nebraska.
I know. But it's we've got a lot of family here, and it would have been, impossible to get us all there.
Yeah. All right.
I would have to call on too many favors, and I don't want to do that.
The way this interview's gone with Matt, I was expecting him to say, "No, I'm going over to Jimmy Buffett's pad, and we're going to hang out."
Other name drop. Yeah.
Well, anyway, Merry Christmas to you and your family, Matt. We appreciate you coming on, like
Yeah.
Adam said, and Merry Christmas to all of everybody that's followed us this year. We hope everybody has a healthy and happy holiday.
Yep. Same here. Great.
All right,
Thanks,
Matt. Send your family our best. Tell them thanks for letting us borrow you for an hour.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
And we always end with the Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
All right, go Hawks.
All right, guys. Thanks.